I was just like, this song's really good if they just made this for the movie.
Oh, come on, let's go. Men kan jo sier du fucking kringle Dr. Drainer again.
Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh releases.
My name's Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week we're talking about the new film, Kneecap.
Gach focal gaelig a lorcher, sé pillar, a skilter or some search in the heron. Boys, belly or shit of
Why don't you just speak the Queen's English?
Kneecap just hit Netflix, and it's about fate bringing Belfast teacher JJ into the orbit self-confessed low-life scum Nisha and Liam OG. The needle drops on a hip-hop act like no other. Rapping in their native Irish language, they lead a movement to save their mother tongue. So this is a movie that kind of caught me by surprise when you brought it up, because it reignited a memory in me. Earlier this summer, Blaise, when you lived in Los Angeles, and when I first moved to Los Angeles, we lived in the Palms area, and there's a semi-popular bar that's been there for years called Irish Times. If you live in Los Angeles, maybe you've been there. It's on Motor Avenue. Great little pub, fantastic place. Of course, known for being one of the top places to go to on St. Patrick's Day to celebrate Irish stuff, of course. So I was surprised to see postcards for this movie and posters for it kind of spread throughout the place, and I was like, what is this and stuff, and I was like, oh, it's got, you know, Michael Fassbender in it, and little did I know it was based off a true story about like an actual popular rap group. But I just thought that was cool to see it advertised there, and you bringing this up to review, I was just like, oh yeah, this is the movie. I saw a bunch of postcards just laying around on every table at Irish Times. But Blaise, what are your thoughts coming out of it?
Yeah, I don't know what the release was like out of this movie. I thought that this was a Netflix original when we picked it, but I don't think it is. I think it just happens to actually be on Netflix. So it's kind of cool that it's out there available to be watched. I just don't know if that many people know, and if the hype from Sundance kind of like died enough. Or maybe we're just missing, like we missed the whole release and we're like, oh, this is like a new movie on Netflix and it's been on there for ages probably. We just didn't know. But anyways, yeah, like I thought that this was an interesting movie. It was the first movie that was done in an Irish language, or the Irish language, at Sundance. So that was kind of interesting as well and made me want to check it out. And yeah, I felt like this movie, it seemed like something we had already kind of seen before. There's been movies like this, but I did feel like it had this fresh take, being that it's done in Irish language. Also, there is English throughout it, but you're gonna need to have subtitles on, obviously, because there are gonna be parts where you're gonna be like, is that English? Wait, what? Did I have a stroke? Like, what's going on? I feel like a lot of these kind of like languages, especially like Welsh, I feel like is the same way, where like when you hear it, you're like, okay, that's not Spanish, French, Italian, like a language that you already kind of know phonetically. You know, when you hear it, like, oh, that's that language. It's like one where you're like, wait, what is that? Like, what is somebody? You can't really tell what they're speaking, and it's like confusing because like, all right, it kind of sounds similar to other languages I know, but it's like a wholly original language in that sense. And I thought that this was a really interesting movie, especially dealing with the language aspect of it and how the Irish language wasn't recognized by the government. And I thought that hook, and I don't think that this movie was pushed on like based on a true story, but I think that could have really propelled it if I knew that going in. But you know, while you're watching, you're like, is this, you know, a little fantastical at moments, or is this realistic? But it's refreshing to see that it was based on a true story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say this movie is catered towards a specific audience. Like, you know, I'm sure it's catered specifically mainly for fans of the group, but as well as just anyone, you know, from Ireland. You know, this is something that, like, you know, is a aspect of people that we don't really know a lot about. Like, this is something that like just got passed recently, it being recognized as a language over there, I believe like 3 years ago in 2022. So, you know, just like seeing how this is something that just like, you know, us over here in the United States might not be aware of, it just made it fascinating, worth watching in that aspect. I'd say overall the movie is not geared towards me, but I still enjoyed it mainly for the filmmaking aspects. I'm not the biggest hip hop fan, but like this is actually part of the hip hop movement and grouping that I do like. I'm not sure what this style would be, but just, you know, growing up originally watching like Skins and stuff, like it reminded me of some of the rap songs we'd hear over there. Of course, the language and dialect and lyrics are much more different from Skins, of course. But you know, just it reminded me of like, you know, there was like a nostalgia to it, I guess you could say. But I'd say, yeah, the sharp editing and just like some of the comedic takes with some of the shots like had a very Edgar Wright feel to them. And, you know, I saw the influences there with him. And so I believe this is also, so the director's name is Rich Pepiot. I believe it was their debut film, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, definitely had the right influences to make his movie stand out. And definitely, like, you know, made me interested in the group and want to look up more. I saw that they played on Jimmy Fallon, I believe, last year. So, you know, even though it's not my style of music, made me interested enough.
I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of their music, but I will say I do like one of their songs. And funny enough, like, I started watching that show on Netflix, Bodkin. So it's like an Irish show, but also it has Will Forte in it. And funny enough, literally at the end of the show, like when the title card comes up, like at the end of every episode, it's literally their song from, I think they played in this movie too, Hood. I think that could be how the movie ends as well. But yeah, like it's that same song. And I'm like, okay, I actually can get down to this song. I like it. It's very punk-esque and I enjoy that song. So they have some songs that I'm like interested in, but for the most part, yeah, I felt like I wasn't super into like listening to their music on their own, but when it's in the movie, I actually enjoyed it. So I will say, like, that kind of caught me by surprise. But one of the things I haven't heard really a ton of people talk about is I feel like them being musicians, but then they also appear in this, and I never felt like their acting was like bad. Like it always felt authentic, where I was like surprised. I'm like, oh, they could have been actors as well. So it's cool to see like almost a biopic where they're playing themselves, and it does feel authentic and it feels fresh, and it doesn't feel like, you know, like, okay, it's, you know, like Robbie Williams, you're like, who is this guy? And then he's being played by a monkey. I'm so confused. You know how like everyone was pissed about that? It doesn't feel like that. It feels very fresh, and it does feel original. And like you said, some of those filmmaking elements especially felt like there's a scene that's just totally in like claymation for like no reason. Like there's fun elements in the filmmaking aspect, and then also like the lyrics, whenever they're breaking into like rapping, the lyrics that like come on screen kind of help you. It's not the subtitles, it's like almost like hard coded in and like looks handwritten. Like it feels very like crafted and authentic.
Makes the movie kind of feel like a music video at times. And so that's what really caught me off guard during this movie too. I just thought it was just an interesting story. Like I was like, oh, like, you know, I'm having flashbacks to John Carney's last film. Even though that wasn't my favorite of his, but it was the one with like, you know, the Skype video chat teaching of music and everything. I just thought like that, you know, overall we're just watching like really good actors within this movie. But what made me really think like, oh, maybe this is a real music group, was when the songs started to incorporate like within their live performances. And then when they actually recorded their songs, I was just like, this song's really good. If they just made this for the movie, I was just like, what? Like, it's very rare that an original song feels like a song you would hear on the radio or would be a hit on a Spotify, you know, playlist and stuff. But it just turns out that they are just really good actors. And so, you know, that's makes this movie kind of stand out amongst a lot of other biopics. Like, I mean, it's very rare enough that you see people play themselves. You know, of course, Bob Dylan he can't play a younger version of himself, like, you know, with like Timothy Chalamet. But just, you know, it's just, it feels very different. Didn't have that typical biopic feel to it. Like, that's why I'm not interested in that movie. I wasn't interested in Bohemian Rhapsody. Definitely not interested in Elvis. Like, you know, I don't care how grand they are or how great the performance is. They just feel inauthentic, not showing some of the darker aspects. And they claim to, and there is those big drama aspects, but just like overall, they're trying to glorify these people. And this movie, you know, wasn't trying to glorify themselves at all. This is just more importantly, a message about stuff that a lot of people don't know about. Maybe, you know, a lot of people know about in Ireland and stuff, but, you know, it's something over here stateside, which I was very excited to like learn more about. Felt like I was back in school, but learning a fun history lesson about it though.
Yeah, I have to say, like, a lot of the problem with a lot of music biopics, and I know you brought up the Bob Dylan movie, I think because that's relevant right now. Like, you hear a lot of people talking about like different music biopics. And I think that the problem with a lot of them is they do kind of go through the notes, whether it's Bohemian Rhapsody or kind of what set the blueprint really was Walk the Line. I was gonna say Walk Hard, but Walk the Line. I feel like that set the blueprint. I mean, even Walk Hard like made fun of that blueprint. Was like, okay, these are the notes that we're kind of gonna go through in a music biopic, and it's just gonna kind of feel samey. And it's like the movies like this where they kind of break that mold, or they don't even really follow the mold, because there's not as, I mean, this band hasn't been around long enough to go through all those motions, really. They just have this kind of epic start to their story, which made good enough based on a true story to kind of blueprint this movie. And I felt like, yeah, this was a really, it felt original at times, especially for a music biopic. And yeah, it was just really enjoyable. Like, it had something for everyone. It was honestly like, it was funny at times, you know, it had a little bit of everything. It felt like, you know, it wasn't just focused on one thing, whether it was, you know, these shots of like the music videos or featuring these songs, or, you know, just like the crowd, like them playing like live in concert. Like, it had comedy, it had drama, it had really everything. So this is kind of like that ultimate festival crowd pleaser, and I could see why it was like a success at Sundance and why people, I think this was like really loved at Sundance. And I can understand why, because literally anyone could buy a ticket to a movie like this at a festival and you're gonna come away happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's crazy that, you know, Sundance is about to start right now in 2025. But, you know, finally getting a chance to watch still some movies from 2024. But, you know, as of right now, when we're recording this the night before the Oscars get announced. So Oscars get announced tomorrow morning. Wonder if this film will get nominated for Best Foreign Film. You know, I'll be stoked to see that, but, you know, I'm not surprised also if it doesn't, though, just because it might feel a little just too out there for what the Academy normally picks for Best Foreign Film. But, you know, overall, I'd be stoked to see it, though, and hope it gets some recognition, because it's a very different film. Didn't expect it. You know, it's not a movie catered towards me, but I still enjoyed it. I'm glad we watched it and glad we have a show to watch a movie like this. So, you know, if you want something different, or if you're a big fan of hip hop, or, you know, anything like that, check it out. It's easy to watch. It's on Netflix, but if you don't have Netflix, you can rent it through our Amazon affiliate link. That's a great way to help support us as well.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, catch all our social media links down below. We have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our own personal letterbox accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.